Welcome to another episode of Power Alphas. I'm one of your co-hosts, Sabby Piscitelli, and my beautiful, beautiful fiance, Mandy Saccomanno, better known as Mandy Rose in the entertainment world, is not here today. She's actually in our house, our new house in New York, working on it, getting it set up. So we're very grateful for that, excited about that. But today, we have a very, very special guest, and this guest is, for me personally, it's a once-in-a-lifetime relationship. It's a once-in-a-lifetime friendship that I developed. It's a man who has pushed me in every aspect of my life. He was kind of the guy in high school where everybody always talked about who was the best athlete in high school, who was the best football player, who was the best baseball player between me and him. So it was kind of like started out as more of a hatred rivalry, I would say. And then it kind of went into a friendly, competitive, everyday grind, always trying to one-up each other. This man followed me to Oregon State, and we were two Florida boys that weren't really expected to do much, maybe in the Pac-10 and going 3,000 miles away to the West Coast. But this man right here was a three-time Pac-10 first-team conference All-American. He is in top 10 category of every single running back category in the Pac-10, which is now the Pac-12. And if you want to look that up, there's some marquee names that came out of the Pac-10. Anybody from O.J. Simpson, Marcus Allen, Marshawn Lynch, Steven Jackson. You'll see Yvenson Bernard up there with the best of them. For me, it's a special, special guest because, like I said, our friendship is something that you can't duplicate. And he's become one of my brothers. So without further ado, I want to introduce one of my best friends, Yvenson Bernard. What's up, my brother?
Oh, man, thank you. That's mad love right there, man. And like Sabby said, we started off as, battling each other in sports, going back and forth, but also, a couple months in, we became best friends, right?
Absolutely.
It was like Michael Jordan and Pippen, and I needed him, and he needed me, and we kind of fed off each other that way. But we also, outside of the arena or the field, we hung out a lot, man, and we talked about life, and we just we're kids, and we talked about relationships, our families, and I'd go over his house and hang out with his folks, and he would come over to my house and hang out with us, and so it always was like that. And one of the biggest reasons for me to go to Oregon State, and you know it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He came back. I remember he was a year older than I, and so I remember him coming back from his Oregon State, and I think it was his bye week, and he's like, "Hey man, you should take a visit. I showed him your film." And I'm like, man, I'm not going way out there. I want to stay home close. And better believe it, I went out there on a trip, and one of the biggest things is knowing that you were going to be there to support
That's
me,
awesome,
and having the big bro there leading the way. And I know you were making ground at Oregon State, and people were really. He came back like 20 pounds heavier, so I knew he was eating good and lifting good, and that was the big reason for me to go to Oregon State was you, knowing you were there. And I was a super shy kid, coming out of high school, and you were kind of like the voice for me, and you kind of directed me and pointed me in the right direction. And still to this day, man, I love you, and I always, kind of go back to. The conversations we have and the serious conversations we have to kind of lead me in the right direction and vice versa. So,
No, I love it, man. Yeah. I love it. And listen, dude, before we dive into all that, and I can't wait because I feel like me and you can talk for hours and hours, but this podcast is one of those things where I really wanted to be the relatable side. I want us to be relatable to the audience, right? So we want to hear in this podcast inspire and true stories, right? I want to hear the failures, the success, and everything in between, because I think some people get misconstrued out there that maybe athletes or successful athletes in college or professional levels or just successful in life, they don't think that they struggle, right? So before we dive into all this, man, and I can't wait to dive into all of it, I want to talk a little bit about your background, man, how you grew up, where you from, where your parents from. I know, it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows, and you did grow up in a harder kind of situation and family. But talk a little bit about that, just to kind of give a background to the fans and the audience watching this.
Absolutely. Crazy story. Mom and Dad were part of the Haitian, immigrants moving here, from Haiti, trying to, live that American dream. And so Mom and Dad came over on a boat, literally, in the late 70s. Hit the shore in, South Miami. And from there, typically they would have runners, like, even the Mexicans and, people that cross these borders, they have like guys that kind of facilitate them, put them in jobs and shuffle them around. So they ended up getting shuffled down to, or up to Delray Beach. From there, they worked as janitors at IBM in Boca.
Okay.
And so from being janitors at IBM, they fell into the job of the dry cleaning business, which was a heavy immigrants work in the back. And they worked at the one in Boca Raton, Florida. Did that for a couple years, and the guy that owned it, his kids didn't want to take over the business, so they ended up taking over that business, and then it became successful, and then my mom and dad ended up buying a couple more dry cleaners throughout, South Florida. So, and they always put us in, and I was born. So I was the first Haitian American to be born in the U.S., obviously. And so from there, typically, families will stay where they, in Delray, typically, or Boynton, where the Haitian communities are. There wasn't a Haitian community in Boca back then. That was like, you can't afford to live there and whatever. Yeah. But my father and my mom wanted to put me in a community where success was around, where I was seeing success was around me, and I could see it, and I was like, oh, I'm like them. It wasn't unnormal to me to see, like, they wanted me, they could make it super normal for me. So growing up and seeing that, I didn't know, and they didn't know what baseball was, they didn't know what football was. I had friends within the neighborhood of Boca Raton, East Boca behind Meisner, which that was like the cool thing to do, was play baseball and football. So got into that. My uncle was a big influence of football. Mm-hmm. He was, he played football. He wasn't born in the U.S., but came over. It was kind of one of those things, mom and dad come, they started bringing their family members over. So my uncle was one of the first ones they brought over, and he got into American football. So kind of got into that sport that way. Baseball was from a really good friend, the Moore family, which kind of got me involved in that, because after school program, I would go hang out with him, after school, and then he was like, hey, I got to go to baseball. I was like, can I come? Can I check this thing out? So I got into that way, and, obviously got drafted out of high school and whatever, but football. But yeah, that's just kind of the journey of my mom and dad just coming here, trying to live the American dream, and they sure did. And, the thing was for them, and I look back at it, you put someone in the surrounding, they're gonna kind of soak up that surrounding.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep. Around good company.
Around good company. Yep. So, Boca at the time, and still right now, it's a great community for families to be, to raise families in. And so my mom and dad did a wonderful job of seeing that early on.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome that I love to hear those stories that people come from different countries and might not know the language, might not know the culture, but you know what? They do know how to work hard.
Oh, yeah.
And they know how to instill that work ethic in their kids, and they instill their work ethic that, listen, that wherever you're living, wherever you're at, you have to wake up every day and grind. Yeah. And obviously, your parents instilled you in that, because you made it, you quick comment, and you kind of breezed over it. But let's make this clear. This man was actually drafted to the major leagues out of high school, but he decided to play football. And let me give a quick background on Yvenson Bernard real quick. Some people might know his brother, who played 10 years in the NFL. His name was Gio Bernard. He went to UNC, got drafted to Cincinnati, had a heck of an NFL career. But Yvenson Bernard, and I could say this confidently, and I had the privilege to play against some of the best running backs in my era: Adrian Peterson, Marshawn Lynch, Steven Jackson, DeAndre Williams, Jonathan Stewart. List goes on and on and on and on. And I say this with all confidence, pound for pound, he's the best running back I've ever played against. And I said he's actually the best running back that never played it down in the NFL. And we could dive into that in a little bit. But the reason why I give this background is because I want to talk about your work ethic that your uncle instilled in you. Because when I met this kid, he was a stud in football, a stud in baseball. And I remember the first time I seen Ev, this is a true story. I think I'm like 12, 13 years old, man. I don't think I even hit puberty yet. I don't even think I had like armpit hair yet, no joke. I think I was trying, people were starting to grow and I wasn't growing. I wasn't getting any muscle yet. I was still skinny, lean, but I was fast. And they're talking about this Yvenson kid, man. You seen Yvenson? I'm like, nah, I haven't seen him. And I remember people talking about, he's better than you, he's better than you. So instantly, I'm like mad. I'm like, hold on, man, this kid ain't better than me. Man, the first time I met Yvenson, I saw him. He was wearing a wife beater. I was like 12, 13 years old. He got out of a car. Looked like he was 21 years old. Swear he had like a goatee. jacked out of his mind at like 12. I'm like, bro, that kid ain't 12, dude. That kid ain't 12. So that kid is not 12. But long story short, man, he's, like I said, he's always been my rival. Talk a little bit, Ev, about, like you said, you didn't come from, it's not like your dad or your mom played sports. What drew you to sports, and how'd you get that work ethic to be so successful at the college level, man?
Yeah. To be honest with you, baseball was the first sport that I got into. It was just more of a, I didn't want to go home and be alone. I wanted to have someone like play with and play as a kid. And so Ryan Moore at the time, still one of my best friends to this day, was kind of like that kid that kind of like had something for me to do after school. And, his dad got me involved into it. But football really took just doing it to do it. An after-school program, it was more of a passion. I fell in love with it thanks to my uncle. My uncle was an amazing player, but very emotional, very committed to success, very disciplined, and he instilled all that into me. And I just took off with it, man. I loved the sport. I loved the challenge. It was a challenge. It didn't come easy. And I played in a Pop Warner league that was very, very tough. I didn't play in Boca. My uncle was like, "No, you're not playing in Boca, man. You're going to Delray." So it was Delray Rocks at the time, and several guys that played in the league, several guys that got D1 scholarships. So that was a rude awakening. Like, hey, man, you got to get to this point to really compete. And my uncle would just push me. I was lifting weights early on when like training, wasn't the big thing back then, right? You didn't like pound weights like you do now. Like now these kids, everyone's doing some sort of like special training or whatever.
Of course, yeah.
And so I had that with him, and he just stayed on top of it. It wasn't like a once a week kind of deal. He would drive down from Boynton to Boca and just, work me, and to the point where I was dreading knowing he was on his way. I was like, damn, here he comes. He's on his way. And as you know my uncle, man, he's very involved, and he was like a second father to me. But yeah, I really owe everything to him. Even my brother, like we owe everything to my uncle. That's the guy that really pushed us to succeed and strive for the best. And then he was a very great motivator. Like, he could talk to you and you'd want to run through a wall after you're done talking to him. I know you have that relationship with Ray Lewis, and so my Uncle Paul was my Ray Lewis, man. So
it's so awesome you say that, and I think what's important that you could even tell the message right now. You said something that you didn't want to be alone, so you started playing baseball, and then your uncle, threw you in football. And I think what's an important message there is, basically, they did a great job of keeping you kids out of trouble. Mm-hmm. Sports was your avenue to stay out of trouble. Yeah. And your uncle wanted you to be the best version of yourself, so he pushed you to another level when it came to sports, right? Mm-hmm. And at that point, as kids, if you're so involved and so passionate, so obsessed with a sport, you don't have time to get in trouble. You don't have time to go down the wrong path, right? You don't have time to develop bad habits. Mm-hmm. And I think, so obviously, we started, your uncle kind of instilled that work ethic, right? Talk a little bit about, I know me personally, when I didn't know you at the time. I know everything was going good. Your family had a great dry cleaner business going, your mom, your dad, your brother. And I know you suffered a tragedy that kind of changed your life forever. If you want to talk about that a little bit, you can go ahead. But I want people to hear that, you could have crumbled up and went the wrong direction, but you didn't.
Yeah.
You put this weight on your shoulders and you became a high school star, a college star, and now a very successful businessman. So talk a little bit about what happened when you were going into high school when you were young.
Yeah. I think a little bit of that, too, goes back to the work ethic part. I want to go back a little bit, but also seeing my parents, how much they worked, right? Waking up early in the morning, coming home late at night, right? Running the business. So I would hardly see them, honestly. And that's why I was always doing after-school program, which for me, after-school program was baseball and football. But unfortunately, going back to what you just said about my mom, unfortunately, I lost her going into high school. So
you were in 8th grade at the time?
Yeah. So it was a summer going into high school. I was super excited. I was like, man, sports I was dialed in. I was doing really well. Excited for this new adventure, playing, high school baseball and football. But I lose my mother. And so for me, losing my mom became my why.
Love
it was everything. I mean, she was
Goosebumps, dog.
Everything I did goes back to her. Like even when I would screw up in school, I would think about how upset my mom would be. So my mom was my everything. And I remember the first tournament, baseball tournament after she passed away, and I could have not played in that tournament, but I wanted to. And I remember getting MVP that tournament. It was amazing. That's probably one of my the best like award I've ever won, because I knew I played that tournament just for her. But still, every other tournament in life, I played for her. Like everything that I do is for her, and everything that happens, I think about her. Like she lives within me every day of my life. And there's moments when I had kids, when I got married, like it was unfortunate for her not to be around. And I know she would be the best grandma, and she would have loved being there for those moments. And it's sad, but at the end of the day, I don't want to get too deep. It's been the driving force for my brother and I, for sure. So yeah.
But you look how, and I appreciate you sharing that. You look how amazing something that was so tragic and life-changing and could have been life-altering for you and your brother.
Oh yeah.
And you guys turned that tragedy into power. You turned it into the why, and you became very successful. Both of you guys became very successful, and I think audience needs to hear that, because we all go through triumphs. We all go through struggles. We all have something where we can say, hey, man, you know what? This is hard, man. I give up. I'm done. Yeah. This ain't fair. This ain't fair to me. And you can complain, you could bitch, you can moan, you can go down the wrong path, or you could look at it as the opposite, like you did, as a why. And you can thank God that he gave you a why. He gave you a motivation, because the truth is, you never know if you didn't have that motivation, you might have went down a different path, right?
Absolutely.
You might not want to go to practice, right?
It happens a lot. It happens
all the time,
unfortunately. But for me, those are just excuses. I always think, what would she say? I mean, you're just making excuses, right? And so for me, I don't understand it, but I do understand a lot of people go through those moments and don't know how to deal with those moments, right? Their outlet may be drugs. Their outlet might be just causing hell and ruckus at school, But for me, that wasn't the case.
I love it. So you turn that into the biggest motivation. But let's jump into your high school for a second, man, because I got to say something on this podcast. People are listening. They need to look this up after I say this. When Yvenson went into high school, he went to Boca High. Okay, so you were a year younger than me. So I was a sophomore. I actually didn't even play football yet, my sophomore year. And they had this gang called the Fab Five. And it was the Fab Five. It was the 5 freshmen that made varsity as a freshman. And all 5 of them started on varsity football. And we had a pretty good high school program at this time. We had Steve Belisari come out. We had Greg Belisari come out. We had Corey Ivory come out. We had some players come out of Boca High that can play the game. And you 5 all made varsity and started. And I'm going to tell you guys something. At this point, I was like, man, this man Yvenson, boy, he was 5'10", 205, but he would run through your face in football. And I've never played with an individual that had this nice laughing personality, kind of like a wimp off the field. Like you would think like he would kind of be scared of like snakes and be scared of stuff, and I'd be laughing at him. But then his helmet would go click, click, and this man was a different animal on the football field. And talk a little bit about when you went to high school, because I know you came into high school with all these expectations. Now you're starting on varsity as a true freshman. Obviously true freshman, right? In high school, all true freshmen, but not a lot of people ever start in varsity as a freshman. So talk about that a little bit, how you became that star, and what was your mindset? Because you had to be a little bit intimidated.
Yeah. Baseball too. I was a freshman on the varsity team as well. I think really for me, baseball really made it easy for me because I knew I was really good at it, and so I could kind of like be an equal. I can go in and like maybe work my way up, but then they threw me out in center field my first game, and so I was like, all right, I'm starting. But baseball just always came natural to me, so I was never nervous there. But football, I was nervous. I won't lie.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I thought that was the opposite when I played with you. I didn't think you were ever nervous on the football
my
field.
freshman year I was nervous.
Okay,
Because
freshman
now
year.
you're playing against some. The seniors there's a gap between a senior and a freshman. That's a big gap, man.
Huge. That's why you do not see, and I mark my words, you do not see in high school,
Especially back then.
freshmen starting on varsity football, because that's actually the years where you develop, right? I was so small my freshman year.
Yeah.
Usually you're not big enough, strong enough, or fast enough to play varsity football, but this man started day one. Sorry, go ahead. I put that over.
No, for me, it was super challenging. But for me also, having that Fab Five, like that whole big thing happening, it made it a little bit easier because I had other guys.
Yeah, like a little gang.
Yeah, I had
like a little gang.
Exactly.
You guys were a little clique.
Yeah, but if it was just me, I would be like, all right. But no, it was amazing, and I never backed down from challenges. I love challenges, man. I loved it. And like you said, man, when I crossed those lines, I was a totally different person, and I owe it to my uncle making me that way. He would tell me, "Hey, you could be you'll be Mr. Nice, cool, whatever, but when you cross that line, you gotta become an animal. You gotta become a dog. Like it's not the same world." And so for me, it would click. Right at that moment, man, I'm telling you right now, I can see it right now.
Bro,
I can almost click right now.
I'm getting goosebumps right now, dude.
Yeah, and so for me, it was a moment to literally, I felt like a gladiator, right? Like,
and you played
across that line, man, and I wanted to be the best of the best, but I also wanted to hurt you. I wanted to put pain. I wanted to inflict pain, because once I inflict pain, like it made my job easier. The fear factor, like every time, like my first 2 or 3 series of offense, I'm looking to hurt somebody. I'm not even looking to juke or whatever. I'm trying to punish you. So now after I punish you, right, the second, third, fourth quarter, that's a breeze after that, right? For me, because now you're scared to tackle me.
Bro, that makes so much sense playing against this kid. That makes so much sense when I had to play against this kid in scrimmages and stuff. Oh my goodness. Oh,
but yeah, no, it was fun, man, and being able to, compete at a high level. We had great talent on our teams, man. We played against great talent in South Florida, and dude, man, playing against you, man, like seeing you evolve as a player was really awesome. I remember, because we started off baseball together, and I was like, man, you got to come out and play football. He's like, man, I don't know, my mom won't let me play, like da-da-da. No joke, mom would not let him play.
Nope.
And so she finally, broke in. I don't know what the hell you told her. But when he was out there, it was really cool to see him be so athletic and so quick, but also timid. And then he comes back his senior year, not timid, a total different body. That was super, super awesome to see. And the coaches tap into your athletic abilities and coaching you and watching you you were coachable. That's a lot of players are not coachable, and that's what makes great players is they're coachable, right? And you were always coachable and self-motivating. No one had to motivate you, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was awesome. And you were motivating me. You were pushing me at a time. I was like, all right,
Before we go into that though, I need to say something first of all, because I need to piggyback on what you just said when you said you walked on every field and you wanted to hurt people. You wanted to set that fear. And let's make this clear right now. This man ran me over so many times my junior year in high school that I had to make a decision. It was either quit football forever or learn how to hit or learn how to run through this kid's face. And, I'll be honest with you right now, and I've told this man numerous times, I would have never became a second-round draft pick. I would have never became one of the best safeties in my era in college football if it wasn't for Yvenson Bernard. And I mean that from the truly. And I'm going to tell you a story right now that sums up his personality. It sums up his mentality and how he approached the game. I remember our junior year, it was my first year playing. It was sophomore year, it was my junior year. It was my first year playing. Like he said, I was just kind of running around out there. I didn't really know much. I was athletic, but I didn't know much about football. Long story short, we ended the season. We were in a 3-way tie for a division championship. So we did a round robin game. We tied, so we had to go, all 3 teams went to a site, and we played each team for a half. And then the 2 teams that, both won played for champions, and it was they crowned first place. Long story short, there was a play that I had a chance to make an interception, and the ball bounced off my chest, and the guy threw it so hard, I just dropped it. No excuse, I dropped it. So we lose the game. Next play, I think the very next play, they scored a touchdown, and we lost. We're in the school bus. We, you take school buses to the game, and I get like goosebumps on this because it's changed my life forever, and I mean this. I had my helmet on, and I had tears running down my eyes, and all I heard was Yvenson in the back of the bus talking shit. He's like, F this. He's like, Sabby lost us the game. And I could hear, like, it wasn't negative, but he was so competitive and so angry. And I remember sitting on that bus and I was like, I'll never be the reason why we lose games again. And that's what motivated me to disappear. Like he said, I disappeared, gained like 20 pounds. And I came back my senior year with the intent to be like, yo, you know what? Yvenson's the best, so I got to step up to Ev. And if I can compete with this kid, and if I can play the game with this kid, then I can go to a different level. And Yvenson didn't really respect nobody until you gave it to him. Like, because he'll run through your face. He ran everybody. I've never seen anybody actually stand this man up. I've seen this man run through linebackers that had 10 years careers in the NFL. So for me, thank you for that mentality you brought to the game, because that changed me. And it changed me in college, and it changed me going to the pros. So thank God, thanks to your uncle too, I guess. But seriously,
it wasn't my proudest moment, but I was just I took everything serious, man. Like it wasn't excuse my language, almost.
No, it's okay.
It wasn't a game to me.
No, it was life for you,
It was
bro.
life, man. It was my only way out. Like I knew, like I didn't want to work in the dry cleaning business. I didn't want to work in that heat in the back, man, and watch my mom and dad just work their butts off and sweat. That's not what I wanted to do. I knew my only outlet to make it to college was to play sports, and then, God forbid, hopefully I could make it to the league, right? So I do apologize to that, but I know it did change you. And I felt that change when we did Oklahoma drill.
My senior year.
And I will never forget, we had a running back on the team as well, and this guy was probably hands down one of the best just natural running backs that we ever, that I ever was around. Eugene French, and had a scholarship to Ohio State literally his junior year.
Yep.
Obviously he screwed it up. We won't talk about that story, but there are stories like that, and we can talk about that at some other point. But anyhow, I just remember that Oklahoma drill when you stood me up, man. I was like, wow, like this dude's not playing. And I gave you credit. I remember being like, hey, that's what I'm talking about. And I remember telling you that. Yep. And you did the same thing, Eugene, but you blew his ass up. You didn't blow me up. But yeah.
Dude, just to tell
I
you.
just knew that moment, this guy changes for just his work ethic. You know what? You didn't change it. You just really tapped into it. You really took it serious, and you saw that you had potential to make it to the next level.
But I truly believe this, and I mean this in the bottom of my heart, not because he's sitting right here. I've actually called him, texted him. He knows this. That drill he's talking about changed my confidence, because this man never was stopped in Oklahoma drill, and for me to stop him. Now I didn't win. Like I didn't knock him down. He didn't fumble, but he didn't score. And I think it was the first time I've ever seen him not score. And I think, like you said, I think that was the moment as an athlete where I actually sat and said, wow, I just stopped two of the Fab Five that I looked up to the year before. And I think it's so special to have that friendship, because I think us athletes, and even us human beings, like it's okay to look up to people. It's okay to kind of want to be that person, but don't be afraid to compete with that person. Don't back down. And I think you taught me that. Yeah. And I think that changed my projection in football forever. Yeah. And I think
we had the same kind of back and forth with baseball. Like I would hit a home run. You're like, I'm gonna hit a home run.
Yep.
You throw a guy, a guy out from whatever outfield. I'll throw a guy. Like we just kept going back and forth.
100%.
We could not stop competing with each other.
A friendly story, just to show you how much we loved but competed and hated losing. This is a true story. And I will say, you were one of the best baseball players I've ever seen in high school level. And you did push me too on that level. There was a time, I'll never forget it. I think I was beating him by like one home run for like the season average. Yvenson hit a home run, like up to bat, boom. Comes in the dugout talking shit. And I'm like, all right, Ev, run your mouth. He's like, I'm tied with you. I'm da-da-da. So my very next bat, I hit a home run. And true story, I never forget this. I'm rounding first, right? And, your team's excited. You hit a home run. I turn over to the dugout. Here's Yvenson like this. like almost upset that I just hit a home run. But that was his competitive nature that like I just went one more up home run on him. And he was so, I mean, obviously I got in a dugout and he gave me a hug and he's happy. But like all I remember was his face like this. Like he was like mad and shocked that I hit a home run the very next at bat. But again, that just kind of sums up like our love,
yeah,
bro.
man.
You know, and it just again, like I said, it's a once in a lifetime friendship. It's a once in a lifetime bond. But I want to fast forward right now. You took that leap, brother. You went from Boca Raton, Florida, to Corvallis, Oregon, 3,000 miles away. You can't go any farther. Talk about that adjustment, man, because I know you were thrown in the fire early with a lot of expectations, and you had an unbelievable college career. But I want you to talk about the struggles, what you went through mentally, physically, and what kept you motivated to be so successful in college, man.
That was a tough one. The first year and a half was really tough. But biggest reason I went out there, number one, it was Steven Jackson at the time, future Hall of Famer, running back, St. Louis Rams, and bounced around the league a little bit. But anyhow, for me, seeing that type of size at the running back position, 6'3", 220, 215, I was a bit nervous because I wasn't that size. I was a way smaller back, and my style was totally different. So I was a bit nervous kind of going there and having those expectations to kind of like fill his, that gap, I guess, if you want to call it. But I didn't play early on. I redshirted behind him, learned a little bit. But our styles were totally different. But what I did learn was his work ethic and also the way he was a teammate around his guys. He was always a good teammate, talking to everybody. It wasn't just about him. He wanted the bulk of the loads. Like he wanted all the ball. He wanted the ball, 30, 35 times a game. Like he wanted it. And to see that want was really cool to see. But then the second part was you were there, like knowing I had you. Basically my best friend, like my brother, man. I knew you were there to kind of have me, during the times that I was down or whatever. And it was tough, man. I remember crying. It was like October and the weather was crappy and it was shitty. And I called my dad. I was like, I'm ready to come home. And, I think you might have heard the call. And you're like, hey, come over here, man. Let's chat. And so those moments were great for my freshman year because it was tough. I didn't really play. I didn't play at all. I played scout team and all that, but I earned my respect on scout team for sure. And you remember
I remember
going against you guys, going against Dewan Edwards, Richard Siegler, big time guys.
Talk about that first time
Browner.
you hit that.
Oh, the corner. I forgot his name.
What was it? Dennis Weathersby?
No.
Oh, no, Terrell.
I can't remember.
Terrell something. What was his name? Shoot.
But anyhow, but no, it was freshman year was tough, man. It was very tough. But the thing that kept me in it and knowing that I could be good at some time where the backups were trash. I hate they might watch it. I don't give a damn. They were trash. So that was another reason I actually committed to Oregon State because the backups they weren't that good. And I knew I could play early on. I knew Steven Jackson would leave early after his junior year. And then I could play baseball there too because, the baseball team was really good at the time. So that was part of the reason why I went to Oregon State. Those are the three reasons. Sophomore year comes, I still don't play. At the time, like having a freshman play or redshirt freshman play was like unheard of. So they played this other kid in front of me, whatever. I played special teams. So I was really upset. I was like, all right, what am I going to do? Do I just kind of grind this out? And I didn't transfer like that back then. Like
it's hard to transfer back then.
Back then it was hard to transfer, and then you didn't think about it. Like
no.
My dad always told me, "Finish what you start." Right.
I love that message right there.
That was big. That was big for me, and I didn't want to let him down. I didn't want to let my family down. I didn't want to let my mom down. I didn't want let my brother down. So anyhow. My junior year comes around and things start. Redshirt
sophomore.
Yeah, redshirt sophomore comes around. And I'm battling it out. This kid they get this kid from junior college. They bring this kid from Florida, University of Florida. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, all right, they still don't respect me. Like, if you're going to try to bring in some guys, that's disrespectful. So I took that to heart. And that was always my motivation to show, the coaching staff, hey, stop trying to find players to replace Steven Jackson. I'm the one. So don't worry about that. Don't do that. And so earned the respect my retro sophomore year, had 1,000 plus, I think 1,200. I can't remember the numbers. But great season, tough. We didn't go to a bowl game. And so that was hard on me because here it is, my first year starting running back. We're not going to a bowl game. Now that hurt.
Yep.
The year before we went to and then my freshman year we went. So the next year ends up being one of my best seasons, one of the best seasons of Oregon State University,
Which was my senior year.
was your senior year. We finished the year on the bowl game, played Missouri. At the time, I can't remember, they were ranked top 10 or something like that.
Yep.
But the next year they went to play in the BCS game, which was huge. So they had, obviously lots of talent, crazy game. But yeah, I think that year really put me on the board as a prolific running back in the Pac-10.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And people that are watching this show, Google him. Google Yvenson Bernard, and I promise you his stats, his accomplishments in the Pac-10 at the time at Oregon State will blow you away. And I mean this, I'm not just saying this, pound for pound, one of the best football players I've ever played against. All right, talk about, now me, we're best friends. I'm graduating. I'm leaving. I'm hopefully going to the NFL at this time. We did dabble, and maybe you were going to come out with me.
Yeah.
Maybe. Remember we were talking about it? You don't know how it would have went down, but you decided to come back for your senior year. Okay, talk about that a little bit. I think, again, now you're top running back in the Pac-10. You're top 5 running backs in the country. It's something that you've done a lot. They're working you. You're carrying the ball. I think one season you had 300 carries in a season.
Average.
And I remember your senior year, you were fighting through a lot of injuries. But talk about a little bit about how your senior year went down to your transition to the NFL. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was tough. At the time, I look back, and obviously my brother left early. Thank God. But at the time, you came back, you played every season. Like, you didn't leave early. That was, like, weird. Like, it wasn't, like, something you did, right? And so at the time, I didn't really understand that. And I didn't understand, like, hey, you could possibly get hurt. I never thought I could get hurt. I look back hindsight, right? 2020, I probably should have left early. Should have probably came out all good. But I was always like that team guy. I wanted to be there for my team. We had a great season that year. We were 10-2.
We were 10-3.
10-3. So for me, it's like I want to come back and be undefeated. I want to go to BCS. So I always want to like achieve more. And I think a little bit of that. I was a bit greedy, I guess, if you want to call it. I wanted to come back and go to a bigger bowl game, be ranked higher, break more records. That was dumb.
It wasn't dumb. It wasn't dumb, but that was your mindset at the time.
That was my mindset at the time. And I look back at it. I would, now it's a little bit different. Right now they're getting NIL money. Well, you might as well stay all 4 or 5 years.
Can you imagine what Yvenson Bernard and Oregon State would have got in an NIL deal?
I can't even imagine. But it'd be a totally different situation. My life would have started a bit early. My bank account would have been a little bit different early on in my career. But anyhow, like you said, you can't look back at that. Senior year was great. Still had a great time. We went to the bowl game. We played good football. We played I think we played in this Emerald Bowl in San Francisco, which was a fun bowl game. That was super exciting. But I made great friends, man. And hey, here, this might seem cliche, but I met the love of my life, my wife.
Absolutely.
My senior year, she's changed my life. We have 2 boys now, 8 and 5, legend and major. And so that if I don't come back, I don't meet her. I don't meet,
there you
I don't
go.
meet certain people. I don't get, exposed to certain things that I got exposed to my senior year. And so, went undrafted, unfortunately, because of a couple injuries. I went to the combine, I went to the Senior Bowl, I did all the MRI stuff, which I probably shouldn't have gone to the Senior Bowl, but failed a lot of the MRIs, and luckily, the St. Louis Rams still took me at the time, and they brought me in, but literally like 48 hours they released me, and then got picked up by the Seahawks, stayed there for a couple months, as a practice roster guy and active, going back and forth, but yeah, that's life, man. It didn't go out the way I wanted to, and then I played a couple years, 4 years in the CFL, but it didn't pan out the way I wanted to. Still, it's a bit of a regret still. Being able to watch you do your thing. I don't want to say it was hard to watch, but I knew I can compete on that level because we competed,
Absolutely.
right? So I think it was more like I know I can compete on that level. I'm competing, against you, and then you know. And then seeing other people around on my team that were either backups
I know
that
it's
were playing
tough.
in the league, and you're like, dude, this is crazy. But I sacrificed a lot at Oregon State. I gave it my all, man. I mean, 300, you know, carries a year average is insane to think about now. These backs aren't even getting
They
nearly.
get barely 100.
They got a 3-back system or a 2-back system, but I was a workhorse, and I was a workhorse at 5'9". That's dude, I'm getting pounded, but. Every time I got back up, man, even if I got an injury, dude, you'd never catch me on the field laying out.
Ever.
I'm gonna find my way to the sideline.
Ever.
But it's all good, man. It worked out. Life is good. Friends, family, we still have this amazing friendship that's lasted many, many years, and we've been in many, many different places in our life and mental as well. So, as you know, man, I love you, man, and I'm proud of you where you become, man. Like seriously, it's and you continue to how would I say it? You continue to reimagine yourself,
Reinvent myself.
reinvent yourself.
Yeah,
Like
it's hard.
You just find that way, and a lot of people can't do that, and you've
Yeah.
done an amazing job at that. But the one thing, man, I'll tell you right now. Sab will always check up on you. He will give you a call. He was never too big for that phone call. I swear, you call me more than I call you.
Yeah, of
You're
course.
always making sure, and he does that with all his friends. And I think that's what everyone knows about Sabby. You're a genuine man. You're a freaking
Appreciate that.
genuine friend. And a lot of people may think you're cocky, whatever, whatever. But this guy is all love, man. And if you're in that circle of trust or friendship, you get a completely different person that you would never think of.
Nah, listen, I appreciate those words, brother, and I always try to make it a point to check up on people I love that changed my life forever. And I've said this before, man. Like, and I told you today I was drafted. I never would have became a football player without you. But I want to say something on a message you just said, man. What you just shared is amazing, right? You had an incredible college career. Yes, your dreams and aspirations was to play in NFL, and you should have played in NFL talent-wise, no questions asked. You had a couple bad breaks, a couple injuries. You ran a 40 with an injured knee that you didn't perform the way they wanted you to do. You never got your shot, which I still to this day think is so sad because he was pound for pound the best football player I've ever played with, one of them by far. But what I like about his message, what he just said too, is if you actually listen to him, he met the love of his life. He met his wife. He has 2 beautiful kids. He has a beautiful life now, right? So sometimes God takes away what we really want to do and what we really think is best for our life. But that's not what God wanted at that time. Yvenson had an incredible college career, but the Lord said, you know what? I'm keeping you here your senior year. You're going to meet the love of your life, and it's going to be such a greater reward over time. And I know you struggled. Listen, man, I still struggle. I still struggle when I watch NFL. You still struggle. But here's the reality. Every athlete, clock is done at one time. Yeah. We all have it. If it's in high school, college, NFL, if you're privileged to play pro, it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And the problem is, Ev, it's never enough.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, Sab, the biggest thing is the game was a way for me to provide. I wasn't playing the game for a game. It wasn't a game to me.
Yeah.
It was a way for me to provide and make
That's what you knew best.
In life. Yeah.
Yep.
So for me, I felt like I let down my brother and my dad. I wanted to take care of them. I wanted to support them. And unfortunately it didn't happen. And luckily, things worked out, and I found another way to be successful in life. My brother had a phenomenal run, 10 years in league. And I had a successful wife, that was, she was doing her thing, man. Here's a crazy story. She married me when I didn't have a job.
Unbelievable.
Right? You know what I mean? That's crazy for her to put all that on her shoulders at the time and be like, I'm going to make a commitment to this guy and marry the man I love. without a job. I mean, nowadays I mean, that doesn't happen. And so for her to believe and trust in me, and have faith that I would become successful in life, this shows a lot. And so now, like you said, man, I would never meet her. Like,
And I
change my life.
and I think that message right there, it's very important for people that are watching, is that Evanson could have very easily went down the negative path in life. Oh man, I didn't make the NFL. This is bullshit. I'm better than all these guys. He could have had negative attitude. He could have turned to drugs. He could have turned to alcohol. He could have not amounted to anything. And right now I'm going to say, and I want him to talk about a little what he's doing right now, but I'm so proud of this kid because he went from coaching and he was kind of lost, and I used to try to help him because I was playing in the NFL at the time and I felt for him and I know he was lost. But this man has continued to wake up every single day and grind and work his ass off, and he's very, very successful now, and he's going to talk a little bit about it. But what I think the message is here is you just got to continue to go, 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 go. You get knocked down 10 times, get up 11. And I think he had that pivotal moment in life where he could have said, you know what? I didn't make my career. I didn't make my, I give up. I'm done. And he didn't. And now you grew to a family. So talk a little bit about, as we wrap up this podcast, man, talk about what you're in now. What's your passions? You're very successful. You have 2 careers. You're around athletes. Talk a little bit about what you do now, brother.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and you know, it took me a while to figure out what I was good at, because I wasn't at the time very good at socializing with people and having conversation with people. I wouldn't walk up to someone and just talk to them, or if someone came up to me, I didn't know how to hold a conversation. So after I was done playing, worked at Nike for a little bit, the headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. And then got into coaching for a little bit at Oregon State, running back coach. I was a GA there for about a year or two. And then got thrown into, I didn't want to go to Nebraska because our head coach had moved over and took the Nebraska job. I didn't want to go there, so I got into fundraising at Oregon State, fundraising for the athletic department. So that job, honestly, out of like important jobs, that's probably number one.
Really?
Yeah, changed my life. How to approach people, how to talk to people, um, how to ask people questions about how to sell. Like, sales is a relationship.
Uh-huh.
It's most 90% of sales is relationship, and having that communication and um, uh, that common ground with that person, find that common ground. So anyhow, I learned a couple of those skills, learned how to ask for money, which was tough. It's not easy asking for money. Asking for stuff, but asking for money is one of the toughest. So went into that job, did it for 4 years, met some great people, and then I met a lot of, and met great qualities about giving. These people would just give money to Oregon State. I didn't get it, like $1 million, 500,000. I was like, why would I just give my money, to my alma mater? But I get it because that alma mater changed their lives, right? Oregon State changed our lives, right?
Of course.
So I get it right there now. And so did that for 4 years. Met a guy that worked for, at the time, Edward Jones. And I remember going into asking him for money. He was a former football player too. I was like, hey, like, what do you do? How are you able to just write this check so easy? And he's like, oh, I do this. I was like, really? Like, what do I need to learn? He's like, well, first of all, you have the network, you have the people, you've already asked, you know how to ask. You should check this out, man. So he gave me an opportunity, joined Edward Jones for about a year and a half, 2 years, did that, and that was phenomenal. And then went into the registered investment advisory, fee-based, got into that, and became a financial advisor, which has been amazing, and been with Capstone Wealth Advisors for almost 3-4 years now. So that's been a phenomenal, absolutely amazing, meeting great people. Basically what I do is I'm a relationship manager, so I bring in clients, because that's the hard part, right? Bringing in the clients. Anyone can, sell and buy stock and mutual funds and ETFs, but it's managing relationship and bringing clients on. So doing that currently still, love it. And then working with LVMH, which has been amazing as well, working with private clients. So basically the same thing, bringing in the clients to really the Moet Hennessy side of things, and working with private clients there and giving them amazing experiences, letting them not letting them, but giving them access to, very limited product. And, I have a focus on professional athletes. So, you name it. I don't want to name all the teams I've worked with, or players, but, I bring a lot of those guys into the fold and giving them experiences going out there and meeting up with them and doing stuff with them as well. So it's been an amazing gig. It's all basically both really work together hand in hand. And so, yeah, now I'm Mr. Connect, man. That's what
Well, what's awesome about that is all your success on the football field, all your success, I think, in the athletic world has got you these careers that you're really, really good at, right?
Yeah.
They want you to entertain athletes. They want you to entertain entertainers, and they want to be around you, right? Listen, billionaires, millionaires, very good CEOs, businessmen, they like professional athletes. They love to talk to an athlete because they respect the work ethic. Because I respect the work ethic of a CEO of a company that's been grinding his whole life and who's sacrificed and who's committed and is dedicated to his craft. And that's the same thing with anybody who's successful. Before we wrap this up, man, if you want to take a minute, 2 minutes, whatever, give some advice to some of these young kids out here. I mean, because listen to your story. Not born, your parents not born in this country, speaking no English, coming here, being successful, putting you around the right people. What would be your message to some of these kids or people watching out there right now?
Yeah, it could be long, but I'm gonna keep it short. And I think the number one thing is people should motivate you. You should motivate yourself. And I think that is the number one thing. You got to be able to motivate yourself. If you can't do that, it's over, man. If you can't motivate yourself, it's not going to work out. So for me, is finding your why and motivating yourself. Don't let your mom and dad don't need to motivate you. What do you want to do? You got to motivate yourself.
I love that.
That's my thing. Motivate yourself.
I love that because we preach on this podcast that listen, man, no one's coming for you, bro. No one's coming to help you. If you want to change something, you change something. If you want to be happy, you make yourself happy. You can't depend on other people. And so that kind of piggybacks off what our theme in this podcast is just you got to look out for yourself because, hey, man, listen, no one's coming to pay your bills for your family but you. And I love that aspect of people listening out here, motivate yourself, be self-motivated. And I think when you listen to Yvenson speak, his story is tremendous because he went from an incredible, little league athlete, high school athlete, college athlete. Yes, he didn't have an NFL career, but he was so successful that it catapulted him into the career he's in today. And what he did was he instilled that work ethic. He instilled the correct habits to be successful. And he was so successful in the athletic world, but now he's so successful in the business world because he kept the same habits. And I think people need to realize that. Listen, Ev, I can't thank you enough, my brother. I love you, man. You're truly one of my best friends, my brother. It's not even a relationship that we can even describe to other people. But everyone listening, man, thanks for listening. Make sure you go to our YouTube channel or Spotify or Apple Music and subscribe. And please continue to watch. And I'm really excited to get this rolling. After the new year, I know the holidays are coming up. We have some tremendous guests, some big celebrities, some big athletes, and thank you for watching.